Well, I would love to welcome Lois Brown to our very first podcast today. And we are so excited to have you, Lois. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a fantastic project. I'm looking forward to it.
So, Lois has told me that she is the National Clinical Education Manager for Independent Living Specialists in Australia. Lois has 30 years of experience as a prescribing therapist, assistive technology consultant, clinical and funding manager for wheelchair suppliers and manufacturers. Lois has presented internationally and nationally on seating and mobility at OSS, ISS, ESS, and I don't even know these ones, CSMC, RESNA, and ATSA. So Lois has been published in rehab publications and is considered an expert in her field. So it sounds like you have been all over the place, Lois.
I have. I've been very lucky. I think as a physical therapist, when you're in school and your first job and you just start going down that path of being a treating therapist, I absolutely can't have imagined the things that I have had the opportunity and the honor of doing. So yeah, all the way from the United States to Australia and in between traveling. It's fantastic.
So Lois, can you help me understand your qualifications? I see you've got a few letters after your name. What do they actually mean?
Yep. So I'm actually a licensed physical therapist in the United States. And I have been one since 1992. So, and I also have a certification in the US that comes from RESNA, the Rehab Engineering Society of North America. So RESNA for short. And it's an assistive technology professional and a seating mobility SMS certification. And what that means is that, it's a commitment really to engaging in long-term my own professional education in this field. And so there was an exam that was created by colleagues, and I did some review of that. But all in all, we took an exam and committed to that, having additional knowledge than just our base knowledge of our allied health degree.
And I love the qualification, the certification that is offered through RESNA through doing that. Do you find that there's many Australians who go and get that qualification or certification?
That's an interesting question. I know that ARADA, for instance, ATSA have looked at or are looking at credentialing for Australia. I think that we will see that develop over the next 5 to 10 years, I believe. I think it's important. I think that I recognize, or at least in my colleagues in the US, we recognize that there is a level of knowledge that is required as you begin to develop this skill set. And to have people work towards that with a curriculum, developing those skills, maybe an internship based to it, to develop some kind of certificate would really be helpful, I think, and bring the industry as a whole globally to a much higher standard. And I think that would only give us more credibility for what we do and how we take care of the clients. So not a lot of people know about it. There are some between Australia and New Zealand that I have found that know about it. And I think it's more important that Australia, that we develop something here for ourselves.
Yeah, I know a lot of countries have credentialing and different systems, and I think that would be fantastic. I think it's a great to affirm your skills and to pass the test, whatever it takes to get that thing of saying, you can come to me and I'll, do a good service, provide a good service. So
one of the most special things about that exam, although I'd like to see it be more of a lab and hands-on skill training, is that it immediately recognized speech therapy, cognitive therapies, adaptive equipment for hearing impaired, and different pieces of technology. And because at times we're bringing those together for that individual. Okay, so we're doing a power wheelchair, but we're connecting the communication device, or we're trying to make the lights and the fans and the air conditioners work through the wheelchair, and to be aware that that's possible, and also to be really thoughtful about that when we plan the equipment, the wheelchair itself, as to how we're going to set that up to make sure the client is really successful.
That sounds like an amazing area, which you, like you said, will keep growing. In Australia in particular. I know we have a very diverse, geographically different places across Australia, which makes Australia a little bit hard because I know our numbers are much smaller than some other countries and vast geography changes. But I'm all for it. Whatever we can do to help to raise the banner would be fabulous.
Yeah.
So Lois, is there something that you'd like to tell us that not many people know about you?
Look, I think there's probably a lot of things people don't know about me, but coming from another country, one of the things is that it's not as popular in Australia, but I grew up in open canoeing down the river. And I had an amazing counselor who encouraged all of us to join a race, take a sandwich, get a race, and go down the river for the day. And I came in first place with my partner, and we were just as shocked, as I think the counselor was. But I loved it. It was strategic. It was reading the water, actually planning your next maneuver and how you're going to get around the rocks. And I just absolutely fell in love with it. So.
Have you done anything with dragon boating since you're in Australia? I know that's...
No, I haven't. I'm happy to at least get into a kayak, and that sort of feeds the need. There's not a lot of open canoes around, but that's okay. I'm adapting to my environment.
Yes, well done, well done. So Lois, where did it all start for you?
I suppose the most impactful was being a lifeguard at a pool. I worked there every afternoon, all the way through, high school and into college. And on Monday afternoons, it was quite a slow time. And I had to obviously, stay on the deck and secure the safety of the people. But on those afternoons, there was a disability swim class, and an occupational therapist for one of the universities would come with her students, and they would have clients come in who needed that particular help in the water. And I was actually in the business school, in the law school, going for a law degree, and completely shifted after being a part of that Monday afternoon. And when there were no other swimmers in the room, I would jump in and help out. And that particular OT, Karen Johnson from Jefferson University, Jefferson Hospital, was my mentor and became my everything about what I wanted to do in life.
That is amazing. Such phenomenal. An amazing story about, why people get to where they're at.
Yeah.
Look, you've done some amazing things across the globe, but can you tell us some of your, the greatest achievements that you're proud of?
Probably is having a family with a little girl with SMA come to one of the trade shows. And they actually came during lunch and just wanted to learn about wheelchairs and what they could do for her daughter. And of course, we recognize that SMA can be quite life limiting as how many productive years they get. But they were absolutely determined to get their little girl moving. And so they wanted us to believe that they had the right intent. They had adapted switches with the OT, fiber optic switches in bed that actually controlled one of her toys. And they were, proving to us, she can do this, believe in us. And we, after the show and for many, many months after, there was actually a team of us across the US that consulted on this little girl to set up a chair for her. And in fact, she was able to, maneuver with one finger for limited periods of time. But it's probably, to see her, they sent us photos of her at Halloween wearing her, her costume in her wheelchair. And she had attended a family wedding, which was most important to them. And, and probably, after another year, she passed. But they made her dream. They gave her a quality of life and wanted us to believe along with them. And I think that's one of the lessons that you can also share just in general for people getting into this area, is that really have to control your thoughts about what you think is possible or not. If you close your mind even for a moment, you'll miss that opportunity to give that individual and that family the hope and the independence that you can achieve.
That is such a beautiful story, because it's more than just, oh, I've gotten from A to B, I've gotten to the shower, I've gotten to the toilet. You've created life.
You're creating a life,
living,
quality of
living.
life.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe, Karen, that quality of life comes from within the wheelchair. It isn't just A to B as a mobility device, but you are creating an environment in that wheelchair, in that device, for someone to be able to function as much as possible. It could be moving a finger. It could be just hitting a switch to go from tilt individually when they feel uncomfortable. So to me, that is incredible independence, even though they haven't actually moved across the room. And we've seen that in pediatrics.
Yeah.
We see that in MND and different, progressive diagnoses. And there's many people at the end of the day that don't drive their wheelchair, but they can still tilt and they can still hit a communication device button. So 2 switches can bring the world, or bring them, interacting in the world. And I think that's a pretty phenomenal thing to be a part of.
And the dignity and empowerment that comes with that.
Yes.
And look, our bodies give way, and they just do. The conditions that we see, people's bodies don't do what they want them to do.
That's
so
right.
I love that we get to create different ways so that people can still be them.
Yes.
And
express themselves, and let us know how they're feeling. And it's great.
So for every amazing story, I'm guessing there's some pretty big challenges as well. Like, can you think of a time when you've had a big, one of the greatest challenges you might have overcome in working with AT?
Look, it's funny. I probably would. I've gave this a lot of thought before our meeting, and the one that really challenged my emotional intelligence, I think, really made myself look at myself and how I was as being invited into that, that person's world, or so I thought. The woman came in for a scooter. She had tremendous extensor tone on one side of her body, with knee extensor tone that was kicking out and flailing the leg, if you will. And she began to do the trial with the scooter, and she clearly was banging into our office walls and things like that. And we're concerned about her, and began to share sort of that this may not be the best solution for you. We have a power wheelchair. You presume to know me. You just met me. And it really, I actually wrote an article about this in mobility management in the US, because I think it made me have to really pause and think about how I could share that difficult information with someone, or how could I redirect them to potentially another solution. I wasn't giving up, but actually it turned out I was able to use the rep, the AT specialist from the supplier, and myself were there, and we actually used each other to help get through that. He was able to speak with her in a less, I had just been confrontive with her. And so he stepped in and was able to, and we started to talk about the kitchen and her other activities and things that she mattered. Oh, I would like to be able to cook. So the power chair with the seat elevate, and we were finally able to redirect her. But it was one of the most difficult, I think, emotional experiences, because you do have to honor what people want, but you also have to find a way to gently redirect them to something that actually ended up offering her more function and happiness and a safer outcome. But it's a challenge to work through those situations.
So what I'm hearing you say is managing expectations can be
That's
such
right.
an important part of working with assistive technology.
That's
So if
right.
someone comes in the mindset, I'm going to do this, and we say, actually, that's not going to work. That's not kind of the way to say it, is it? Or
That's right.
there's ways
Yes,
to gradually use motivational interviewing and other strategy to say, hey,
that's right.
this isn't working well, but we've got this incredible other idea. What do you think?
That's
Um,
exactly right. And I think that takes some, look, I think that comes with day-to-day practice. And over the years, you get better and better at it. I think doing some, I've done a course at Oceana Seating Symposium with Jean Minkle, and Susan Taylor couldn't attend, but we did on the art of listening, and really, but also our communication and making sure we don't bias the decisions that people make with what we want to accomplish for them, but having them begin to see, right, that potential of that power chair in the kitchen was it. And we just, we finally hit on it, and it became a successful outcome.
And I often talk about assistive tech as an art and a craft as well as the science. So the
Yes,
science is, we already know the science, center of gravity and this speed and, this position,
right.
the seating and positioning. But the art and the craft is the communication and things like the matching person to technology, those kind of models, or
Right.
the hat model. You have to consider the whole, the person, the technology, and how it
Yep.
matches, or else
That's right.
it's
And
not a
for the
match.
family as well, if we don't have buy-in of the carers and the family members and the people that are going to support the AT, then, if we don't have that either, then it becomes too hard, and the individual feels even more dependent and unable to action anything if they don't have that support. So it's important to bring them into it as well and explain how this is going to function within the family unit as well.
I'm guessing some of that doesn't all happen in the 1 hour session that you might have booked with someone.
No, of course not. And I truly believe, and I know that you do as well, that you really have to honor the process. The WHO and a couple of different organizations, RESNA, have laid out that sort of 9 steps that you have to take from final assessment to delivery, but also follow up, and the training that actually should come after delivery, and work with the family members to be comfortable. We've taken videos, and I see therapists taking videos and pictures of the controls or what they might need to do to move something on the chair, and we find ways, right, to be creative to bring that into the realm of the intervention that we're doing.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we want it to succeed for everyone, don't
Yeah,
we?
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
So looking back at where you started, is there anything that you might have done differently with your career or your lifestyle?
Um, Look, I have to tell you, I think it's amazing that I went to physical therapy school and have ended up, in Australia, being teaching clinical education and training, and all the opportunities I've had to travel and to do some lecturing, but to take me around the world, to many, many places I think I never would have. I've been an inpatient therapist, an outpatient therapist, a therapist in a wheelchair clinic, a therapist in a grant-funded mobile program where we kept people from being institutionalized. I was driving around with, sort of all the equipment that all of my colleagues do, the shower chairs and the wheelchairs, and going out and doing these trials in the home many, many years ago, to working for a manufacturer, doing education, training people around that RESNA ATP, and then being asked to come to Australia to work for Invacare as a channel manager and begin to bring my career to a different place. And I've just gotten so lucky to end up with ILS and be an education manager. It's just a PT degree to, over here. I think it's gone really, really well.
And look, you're in the lucky country, I hear too. So you've made it. Like, is there anything better? Seriously.
That's it. That's it. I'm living the dream.
Yeah, that's it. Oh,
I'm living at least the American dream of coming to Australia. People say, I want to, so come on down.
Well, we're very fortunate to have you in Australia
Thank
helping
you.
out with education and other things.
Thank you.
So when you talk about the kind of AT that you're working with, you talk a lot about seating and mobility. Is that the main kind of AT that you specialize in, or are there other areas?
Look, I have a good past of doing some computer access, understanding speech devices and how to hook them to link them to the power chair so people can access it. Way back when even the technology wasn't as good, learning how to program people's televisions and fans and lights and using ECU modules to make that happen. So I love the idea of how it all can integrate and work together. But seating and mobility is probably, my focused area, complex seating and, making the right choices around mobility.
And it's highly unlikely that there's many physios around with your kind of skill set, especially when you start talking about AAC and making home automation integration. And
look, I think it is, the United States has probably more physical therapists in the role of AT prescription, and Australia is very occupational therapy based by degree. But I think it's a mindset. I really think it's an exposure and a mindset that anybody can adapt that's in an allied health profession. We just happen to have a day program for brain injury students going back to school, and a lot of them were not going to be able to type, or we had adults who had strokes and brain injuries that, needed to find another way to communicate. So I had an interest, I set it up, I would learn, drag and dictate over and over and over again. And so all of it really can be in the realm of our wheelhouse. We might not have the expertise, but we are aware of it, and we are able to source out those resources that can help us make that happen.
Yeah, and like there's some areas that I'm not particularly interested in working in. It's not that I couldn't learn it if I didn't, if I really wanted to, but I really love the things that I'm doing. So it's like vehicle mods is one of the things that I'm happy to hand over to other people because I've got other areas. So I know that we can all learn, whatever inspires us. Yeah. So then what is your why? What drives you to do what you do?
Yeah. It's funny. I believe that I really think I feed off of my passion feeds directly from helping people realize their potentials. I think that if you ask me, that was the baseline. It's being a counselor, taking a group of girls who have never navigated whitewater rafting and going down a river and having that fear and the unknown, and how they're very, anxious about it, and seeing them just laugh and smile after the first rapid, right? And that's gone all the way through my career to, seeing that woman actually get in the wheelchair and there was a smile, there was a change in her, how she looked, and you could tell that you have given her some bit of hope and function that she didn't think she would ever get again. And I think that's what's so special about what we do.
And that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Every day. Every day.
That's a beautiful thing. That is really lovely. Is there anything like most rewarding piece of AT? I know you've spoken about your lady with the child with SMA.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that kind of stands out for you through your career?
Look, I think I think you always have a group of people that you remember, right? It's been years and years. There's a little boy who I saw as a 12-month-old and getting him into power. And it took us probably until 18 months to really get him seated and, everything fitting the way that it needed to give him an opportunity. And this mom had been carrying him. Arthrogryposis has been carrying him since birth. He was nonverbal. Mostly. He had maybe a few words, and a speech therapist actually did a pretest on him, and we got involved in the power wheelchair, finally got him moving. The minute he picked up the joystick, he took off, found a set of mirrors in his school room, and just drove along, checking himself out, how cool he
yeah.
was. And his post-testing after 3 months was he had gone from, I think, less than 10 words to over 30, right? Just because of that exploration, that self-exploration, and how we know that that helps develop language. And like I could name probably 100 more if we had time of those moments, and those moments are what make it.
Yeah. No,
So
that's really, really good.
yeah.
So for people who are wanting to get into AT, is there like a one sentence bit of advice that you would have for them?
Look, I think it's really about, it's just a privilege to be a part of someone's story. It's a privilege to step into their home and step into their world. And I think that for us to be mindful of that, to know when to pause, to know how to sort of facilitate a good outcome, is a lot about what we said before, is about communication and how to talk through that. So it's great to have an assessment form and just tick, tick, tick. But it just like you and I, we're trying to cultivate a conversation. And I think that is something that we need to practice. We practice with our peers, get more comfortable with that. And just know that it's an honor and a privilege, and you're a part of a solution for someone, is, I think, one of the greatest things you can do in your life.
And I guess when I hear your story, I'm thinking about how when I used to work in the hospital, we were like we saw ourselves as the experts, as the ones who would come in and save the day and would tell people what to do. But when you're in the community, that doesn't work. You can't say, right, you need to take up your mats, because you turn around and then the mats are all back. Let's face it. That's what happens when you start following the checklist that we received at university. But the reality is quite different. So it is a privilege, and it's time for us to step back and be an advisor more than not telling someone what to do, that you need to do this, because it won't work, will it?
That's right. That's right. There's not likely that if they weren't a part of, just like in life, if you're not a part of coming up with a solution or a task force, within your work where a big change is going to be made, but you're asked to be a part of coming up with that process, or that's going to change, you have much more buy-in, right? And so that way we can apply it to the clients as well.
Yeah. And so, look, you can look superficially at things like cost and funding schemes and how to get the report writing done and the justification. But at the end of the day, once you've gotten on top of finding the right bit that works, you'll be passionate about it, won't you? It's like, I will get through this 20-page, 30-page report, because this person needs this equipment, because it's going to change their world.
That's right. That's right.
So it changes, I guess, the motivation for us as well, doesn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. I have asked you to come up with like 3 lessons that you would like to share to help people who are interested in working in assistive tech, or maybe working with assistive tech, or people users of AT. So really this podcast is about people's stories, and that my heart to that is just to share the person behind the AT suppliers and the providers and the users, to go, this is life, like this is what life might look like. So I love some of these things, but I'd love you to share some of 3 lessons that you would like to share.
Okay. All right. So I think that sometimes the client and the family can have the optimal solution that works for them. Okay. Another thing you don't know about me, a lot of people don't know, is that I love photography. And I would go to art street fairs and things in the US, and you can't imagine what happened when, I'm not going to be able to show this, am I?
I have to take off your filter.
I'm going to take off that filter. Background? Hold on a minute. Hold on. I'm going to take it off for a moment to show you this. Can you see that?
Wow. Is it a donkey?
Yep. So that is a donkey pulling a gentleman in a manual wheelchair. It is not Photoshop. It is something I truly bought. And the lesson there is that this gentleman had the solution. He's the one that figured that out. And I think that's really important to honor. Okay, people are living and they might have a creative mind. They might have been an engineer. They could have been, you know, and we have a lot of adult brain injury, but they would figure things out themselves that might work. And there's no reason necessarily for us to change it, right? Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that people might already have an idea and ask an open-ended question and see what they've already tried, and then listen to that, and then maybe we change our next steps. Okay.
And so when we come along and say, this is the evidence-based, blah, blah, blah. But
yes.
I guess I think of Graham Smith, who has mentored me with some electronic assistive tech. And he said, don't be an AT evangelist. Don't try to force technology on someone, because if they're not ready to receive it, it's not going to be the right solution. Even though, like, you'll go up to people and they'll say, I want all my lights to work. Well, what do you really mean by that? Because a lot of people then go, I don't like using my phone. I don't like using this. It's like, all right, let's come up with something else. Because if we go, this is this is kind of best practice. This is what should work. But if it's not right for them, it isn't right. And it is okay to leave them with simple solutions that might tweak what they're doing, or it might be even saying, well done. What you've done is great.
That's exactly right. That's right. Yeah. So I think, sometimes just on that note, I think that when you enter someone's home and into their space, that's that same honor and respect we talked about, is not bringing the equipment in right at the beginning of, if it's a trial day and you're having us come along and the therapist is there, is just go in and talk to that person, have a look around, get a feel for it, easing them into the idea of they might need some other technology, but, looking around and seeing what they've already figured out and trying to make sure that you work around it. So.
And seeing the abandoned pieces in the corner and going, actually, we've got to take a few steps back.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Karen, right now, because my second point was actually about really listening to the client and the family about what works and what's already been tried, right? And what's already happened. And I was in New Zealand for the first 3 weeks of my moving across to Australia. My visa wasn't ready yet, and I was lucky enough to be stuck in New Zealand for a few weeks. And I met a young girl there that whose father worked for Invacare at the time, and I did some consulting. And I actually ended up having the family do some videos for me on a presentation about that listening, because mom was clearly able to say, this therapist said we needed this, that's in the closet. This therapist said we needed that, that's in the other closet. And it's, we don't need more equipment in the closet. So she was asking myself to just kind of consult and take a look and say, please ask me what I've already had and what didn't work and why it didn't work, so that we don't have to go through that entire process again. Yeah. And she really left a mark on me. I met her 6 years ago. I still am a little bit in touch with her. But they were right. They were absolutely right. So that's my second lesson.
Yep. Second lesson. So listening.
My third is probably that I think each of us as an allied health professional, we might walk in and find a very different approach to the way previous colleagues had. That can be good or bad. But I think as long as if you're stepping into where someone just left, that's the hardest part, is you have to go back in and at least honor the process, recheck, down to the body measures, the range of motion, the joint angles, the function. Are they still in that? That could be 3 months that they've been transitioning. And it's important to go back and continue to go through that process. If you've done that, then you can have confidence, like you said earlier, about that solution and what we'll do to fight to get that funded, because we know that it is. So go in with a fresh set of eyes, even if you're taking over for someone else, and making sure that it is what you think will work for that individual.
I think it's always important to honor the person that's gone before. And like people will say, they didn't do this. And it's like, you never know when someone's saying that about you right behind you. So it's just,
Right.
you know,
Or
all right.
the client didn't allow you. The client might have just been belligerent and said, I'm, not going to get in that wheelchair.
Yeah,
Or
there's
I'm
more to
not
the
gonna.
story, isn't there?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't know the whole story, right? So
yeah.
just do your best and work with the previous therapist. Get as much information as you can. But again, it's good for you to have your own full assessment to give you the confidence of what decision you've made.
Absolutely. And that's the
Yeah.
sciencey part that matches with the great communication and listening.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Are there any of your favorite quotes that inspire you?
Oh yeah, I will share it with you. This quote is actually is given every year to 3 different people as part of a disability fitness program that I was involved in the US. And it's on the award that those 3 individuals that year will get. So I'll read it to you then. All right. Okay. So on that award, it says, in every man and woman's life, there comes a time of ultimate challenge, a time when every resource is tested, a time when life seems unfair, a time when our faith, values, and commitments are put to the greatest test. Some people will use this as an opportunity. Others will allow this experience to destroy them.
Wow.
And so, why that relates to our talk today is because we are a part of that ultimate test, and we are facilitating the possibility of a person looking at this as an opportunity to still re-engage in the things that matter to them. They could be a parent, they could, they could want to, play with their kid. They might at least be able to want to interact with a young child with a toy with an electronic switch and be able to play with their child. I mean, we have a chance to really, facilitate an enjoyment that they can still have. Otherwise, I think, without that kind of motivation and our encouragement and enthusiasm, then it can take people down a not so great path.
Yeah. So we do make good impact in people's life, don't we?
Yes, I would like to think so.
Well, yeah, I hope so too. Is there anything else you would like to let us know about? We've had this opportunity really just to talk about stories and inspire people about assistive tech. That's my goal in the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or how else can people find out more about you?
Okay. Well, I think I'll just let you know that, so as you said earlier, I am the National Clinical Education Manager for ILS. My responsibilities are for internal training of our OTs and product specialists that actually individually, are working with the clients. And then we also, of course, do external education as well. And we take care of that from supporting the hospital nurses and carers in pressure care and other, AT equipment. We have a home care and community care team that focus in on beds and mattresses and pressure care and every lifters and hoists and everything that can support that client from moving from hospital to home. And then, of course, we have our rehab configured mobility team. And we have the retail stores that give us an opportunity a lot of times to trial the equipment, as well as support people that just need follow-up, AT devices, and make that as easy as possible for them to get them. So I think that that's a model that we're really proud of, and especially that we are dedicated to hiring OTs to work along with the referral OT so that everyone's talking the same language. We understand diagnoses, we understand the implications, and we can help to rule out trial and also rule out equipment that isn't going to meet that need. So I think we're quite proud of that. The education, we can be reached at education@ilsau.com.au. And then myself, it's lois.brown@ilsau.com.au. And if you directly want to make a referral to the rehab team or something like that, that's rehab@ilsau.com.au. So lots of different ways to reach out. If people find me, I'll get them to the right person.
And you're all across Australia?
We're all across. We're up into Queensland, northern Queensland, Cairns, Brisbane, down through Townsville and into Brisbane, Gold Coast, coming all the way down to that sort of outside of Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, Adelaide. And so that's where we are now. And I'm sure that will keep going. So
yeah, wonderful.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to doing some of your training. I think that'll be very exciting, and hopefully you can join us to do some training for our groups that we'll be running as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to your
yeah.
training initiatives too. So that'll be
you.
quite good.
Well, look, I really appreciate you and honor you for your time and your devotion to your art and your craft in working with assistive tech, and for your sharing that with the world, sharing that with the people around you, and it's infectious in the most lovely way, you know, in this world of things that are infectious. That's the one that we want to spread.
That's right.
It's
that's
passion.
The only infection we want to spread.
The only one we want right now is a bit of passion and a bit of
that's right.
motivation, and to just help us keep going even when things seem tough, because there are things that are challenging, but that's part of the process. So we shouldn't be surprised by that. And we can take that and use that. And like you said, it might be 18 months process that gets you to this step, to that step. Yeah. And that's okay. That's just part of this work. It can be very challenging and complex, but the rewards are incredible. The quality of life that's possible is great. So really want to honor you and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Karen. It's been absolutely a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.